Today I invite you to turn in your Bibles to 1 Peter chapter 1 and to read verses 3 through 9. And this is where Peter is offering words of blessing, and you hear so many of the key words of our faith: hope and faith and rejoicing. And even if they're suffering trials, that the genuineness of their faith may be revealed. And our verses for today are verses 8 and 9, where Peter writes, "Although you have not seen him," meaning Christ, "you love him, and even though you do not see him now, you believe in him, and rejoice with an indescribable and glorious joy, for you are receiving the outcome of your faith, the salvation of your souls." So I just want to talk briefly this morning about rejoicing in our salvation. Uh, Again, I think part of being prepared for the return of the King, part of being prepared even for suffering, as Peter writes about in these verses, is simply understanding that times of suffering and hardship and difficulty are always going to come. That's just part of life, and it's a part of life we can never get away from. And so just knowing that, I think, helps us. Jill and I last weekend were driving back from a baby shower for our daughter-in-law Marcy and our son Greg, and I kept looking at the traffic before we were going to leave Gordon Conwell Seminary and make the drive back to the Cape on that Saturday, and you just keep seeing the red and the red, and it doesn't go away. And you just have to mentally prepare yourself. Okay, it's going to be a slow trip. It's going to take longer. We know this is the case. But then when we finally got through all that and we were driving on Route 3 South and we're flying along, and now mentally you've shifted gears and you're thinking you're going to get home at a certain time, and then all of a sudden there's traffic and there's a stoppage, and it's because sadly there had been a fairly bad accident involving a couple vehicles. And so we're grateful that we weren't the ones involved in that and prayed for the people who were. But again, that speaks to our expectations when it comes to hardship and difficulty or even suffering. And Peter says, even going through all that, and even though we haven't personally seen Jesus, we've heard about him, we love him, we believe in him, and so we rejoice with an indescribable and glorious joy, because we know that the outcome of our faith, of holding on to our faith through all those tests and trials and difficulties, is that we are going to have the salvation of our souls, that we are going to be transformed into the likeness of Christ, and that eventually we will be with Christ and with God forever, and the trials and the troubles and the tests and the temptations will all be in the past, and that will certainly be a time for rejoicing.